Hi, this is Mr. Portis, and today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to finish writing our body paragraph for the author study unit. We are also going to be working on our intro paragraph. So we have multiple sentences today. We are kind of piecing it all together. We are coming down to the wire and finishing our class, and so we need to make sure that we've got all of these sentences in place. We need to make sure that we've done the best job possible and that we are adding to the pre-existing work that we've done. So up until now, you have done the author style sentence, context, concrete detail, analysis, and commentary. You have put together the main core chunk of your writing. And now we need to get the topic sentence and the concluding sentence. And again, the reason why we wait until the very end is because these are ancillary they're important, but they're not as important as what's in the middle. And that's what we have to get across first. So when we look at the topic sentence, we want to introduce the paragraph in a general way. Okay. We want to reference to our writer. We want to reference to our author. We want just a general sentence that kind of moves us into the conversation about what goes on. So in the real world, you may have someone come up to you and say, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?" That's a very general sentence that guides you into a discussion about making your plans, what do you like versus what you don't like, and you kind of move towards, oh, well, let's do this weekend, right? The same thing goes for your topic sentence of your paragraph. You have been writing about the author's writing style, what it means, the bigger purpose. So can you give me a sentence where you introduce the story? Can you give me a sentence where you introduce the writing style? So if you've identified here that you are writing about metaphors, tell me metaphors are a good way of communicating different ideas in literature. Something very basic like that. The House on Mango Street is a collection of short stories, like something very basic. You will, in your intro paragraph, be introducing your story. So you don't have to give it like that general. Maybe I should actually pull back and say, don't introduce your story, but introduce the concepts of your story. Okay. So if I look, so with that being said, let's give a little preview. In your body paragraphs, those are the components you're talking about. In your intro paragraph, these are the things that you'll be talking about here. You'll give me a general sentence about your author. I would use those research questions that we've had. You're going to introduce the poems and the titles that you're working with. You're going to give me a brief sentence about what the poems or the stories are about. You're going to explain your author's influence and writing style. And this comes into play where we did the research questions about their life, like childhood, relationships, jobs, living conditions, all of those things. And then you'll have the thesis, the point you're trying to prove. I actually have a thesis frame that you can fill in right there, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But be aware, these items right here is where you're going to introduce the Cask of Amontillado, the House on Mango Street, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. That's where you're going to introduce those things. So when you have your body paragraph, you want to introduce the writing style. You may want to introduce like the story context. So the Cask of Amontillado is about seeking revenge, for being hurt in the past, right? I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings talks about the author's tragic life and how she overcome those obstacles, right? The House on Mango Street deals with finding your own voice in a new community that's not your own. You want to give a general sense of what's actually happening. Okay, so again, what are your plans for the weekend? That's my topic sentence. That's going to guide the discussion as we kind of begin to finalize. And that's what you've done here. Metaphors are a great way to communicate feelings and emotions. Like that's your topic sentence. Then here, your author style, context, you give an example, you go down to your analysis, and your commentary guides us into this is what the author's really doing. And here's why they're doing it. And here's how they're doing it. And this is what the readers experience. That's what these sentences are. So now when you write your concluding sentence, don't worry about the transition sentence, just the concluding sentence. What does it really mean? Okay. What do we learn? What do we take away from? When we step back and we look at, wow, they use metaphors in this example from I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and it talks about how she overcame such hard abuse by selecting her words carefully. And this shows us that we must be kind to others, that we must care for others. As a result, our author has told us, our author communicates that it is important to treat people fairly, regardless of circumstance, right? If you have talked about the idea of long, descriptive, sophisticated word sentences, and you entered into the story of the Casa of Amontillado, and you've identified that there's this idea of seeking revenge in the most manipulative, purposeful ways, and it means that the readers understand, oh, we can do a lot with our words and persuade people with our sarcastic words. And as a result, and in conclusion, we learn that Poe tries to emotionally manipulate his readers into feeling the same thing as our characters, right? You want to bring everything down so you're, wow, what is with it that we are learning, okay? That's why we're only doing one paragraph, because that's how important it is for us to be able to identify these things. So even though it's two sentences, your topic sentence and your concluding sentence, you want to just quickly say, introduce the concepts, bigger concepts of the story or the poem or the idea of what's happening. Then at the very bottom for that concluding sentence, what does it all really mean? What does our reader embody? What do they learn? And how does that writing style communicate that? And what do our authors are really trying to piece together? Think about their life. Think about the research that you've done. Think about the pieces that you can put together that would communicate what's happening for that. Okay. Now, once you have that done, you've got your full body paragraph. Congratulations. Even though there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sentences. It may be more than 7 sentences simply because your analysis, your author's style, the context, some of those may embody 2 or 3 sentences, and that's okay. The minimum would be 7. I would say you should have anywhere from almost like 10 to 12. Okay. Now, if you click on the other document, it's going to take you to your intro paragraph. The intro paragraph is kind of saying, hey, we're doing an author study, and here's what I'm writing about. So I would suggest working backwards on this, starting with your thesis, going up to the author's influence and kind of figuring out what else do I need to say. So for your thesis, I gave you a thesis frame. You guys have created your thesis in the past. This one's really complex, so I just kind of wanted to make sure that you guys understood it. So your author's name. So let's say I'm going to use Shakespeare as an example, and you guys can plug this in for your stuff. So Shakespeare's writing style uses iambic pentameter, metaphors, and detailed description to, I'm going to pick a verb, to convey his blank and blank life through stories and poems. So I need 2 descriptive words for his life. So I'm going to say struggling and successful life through stories and poems, because he does that with his characters. You see them like struggle to try to pursue after something, and then there's some sort of success on the other end. So I'm going to say Shakespeare's writing style of iambic pentameter. Oh gosh, my mind just went blank. What iambic pentameter? My 2 other ones, you guys can rewind and find out what I said, conveys his struggling and successful life through stories and poems. So Sandra Cisneros put down 3 of the writing styles. Reveals or conveys, you pick your verb. Her, and then you've got her life. How would you describe her life? So this right here is your thesis sentence frame, and that's going to go into this box right here. Okay. The second part is explaining the author's influence and writing style. So talk about how Sandra Cisneros wanted a voice. Talk about how and why Maya Angelou selects words so carefully. Tell me why Edgar Allan Poe's his stories and poems are so full of emotion because of the sadness that he's occurred relationally in his life, right? Here, this is where you introduce your poems. You give the title. You also give like a little clue into what's going on. So Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe tells the poem of a long lost lover, right? The speaker in the poem desires for his love to come back after death and realizes that she would never will, and ends up living in sadness, right? That sounds so bad. But that's the truth. So you're going to be introducing your poem and kind of alluding to what it's about. Now here, this is where you get to introduce your author. Who was Edgar Allan Poe? Who was Maya Angelou, right? You can go back all the way to your very first day of this unit where we talked about Maya Angelou is an African-American poet and civil rights activist. It's very straightforward. Sandra Cisneros is part of the Hispanic community who transplanted to Chicago as a child and learned to find her voice in literature, right? Edgar Allan Poe suffered many extreme deaths in his life for relationship loss and therefore begins to write about his sadness. Okay, you are introducing your author in a very general way. All right. Now, even though I went rather quickly through this, this is all review, and you can go back and stop and pause and build up these items. Your goal, ladies and gentlemen, is to have all 5 of these sentences complete. Your goal also on this side of your body paragraph is to have all of these complete as well. You should have anywhere from the minimum would be 7, which is 1 per box. But then I would stretch it to be like, 10, 11, 12. Like that's kind of where you're moving towards. And remember, you want to articulate yourself well. You want to explain yourself well, and that's your goal. Okay. Take a moment and message me if you have any questions or concerns. This is coming down to the wire, so you do want to make sure that you have quality work. I will talk to you guys soon.